The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on September 20th, 2022.
All right, it's 7:06 on a Tuesday morning. That means it's time for Business Matters with Pam Toompop. And now here's your host, Pam Toompop.
Gary, aloha and welcome to Business Matters radio show, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines and brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. I'm Pamela Toompop, president of the Chamber of Commerce, and today we're going to talk about workforce housing and hear from a chamber member who has also gotten involved in a business relating to housing as well. We're going to start with Lawrence Carnicelli, who is the Vice President of Development for Alaula Builders, and Lawrence has a unique and wide range of experience that has led him to a deep understanding and knowledge of Maui's workforce housing development that few people on Maui really have. Lawrence ended his 5-year term on the Maui Planning Commission as the longest standing chairman of the Maui Planning Commission's recent history. He helped write housing legislation while he served as the Government Affairs Director of the Realtors Association of Maui and continues to serve on the board of directors for Stand Up Maui, the nonprofit affordable housing advocacy organization. He has also been a real estate broker on the island since 1999, and his Hali Anui Affordable Housing Group negotiated a settlement in which Maui County received 53 Maui Lani lots to be used for affordable housing. So he has been doing a lot. So for over a decade, he has focused on one thing in his career, which is affordable housing for the Maui community. And today we are excited to have Lawrence talk about something deeply important to us all, attainable housing and rentals, including workforce housing, and his project, Kuikahi, which is 100% workforce housing in Wailuku. Good morning, Lawrence, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Pam. It's great to be with you and here on this sunny Tuesday morning and talk about workforce housing for Maui families. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, we are very excited to learn about Kuikahi. Tell us a little bit more about this project in Wailuku.
Okay, well, thanks. Maybe what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of a step back and just talk about Alaula Builders. So Alaula Builders we're focusing just solely on for sale, workforce housing, not the for rent side. So, there's the for rent workforce housing, right? I guess the for rent stuff is really more called affordable housing, and then the for sale stuff is called workforce housing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing is we're doing nothing but 100% workforce housing for sale projects. We currently have one that's underway and going vertical right now called Halikaiola. That's in North Kihei. We had one that we were attempting to do in Central Kihei that the Maui County Council turned us down on. And then we focused our attention turned towards Kuikahi Village, which is in Wailuku. And it's right below Wailuku Heights, if you know where the water tank is in Wailuku Heights, going up Kuikahi Drive. So it's 14.97 acres right below Wailuku Heights. And what we like to do is we like to focus on what we call the missing middle, which is just housing. We have for rent folks that are focused on, say, the 60% and below. We have market rate housing, and then there's this gap in between the 60% of AMI folks and the market rate folks. And so we've really focused on that. Kuikahi Village, so it's infill. There's housing on all four sides of it. It is smart growth, so we're trying to do a lot of different types of homes. So is this mixed use is the euphemism that we use or is used in the industry. And we have 7 different types of homes in this one particular neighborhood that we're trying to do. So the mixed use portion of it is we'll have 3-bedroom condos, we'll have 2-bedroom condos, we have duplexes, townhomes, single family residences, tiny homes, and also what we're calling live work, which is essentially it's a townhome that's going to have a studio underneath it where you might be able to have a little home-based business, or even if you wanted to just put, say, a long-term tenant in or something like that, you could do that. But it's only solely for Maui residents. You have to be a Maui resident to qualify. They will be sold via lottery. The prices are set by the county, not by us. So people always want to ask about, well, what are you going to price them at? We don't pick the prices. It's the county chooses the prices on those. Again, only Maui residents can qualify for the lottery. And I guess that's off the top of my head, all of the sort of high-level particulars about the proposed neighborhood. We were in the Affordable Housing Committee. We went through 3 very long meetings, finally got approvals to get out of the Affordable Housing Committee, and we move on to County Council. Actually, it'll be next week, I believe, next week or the week after. But we still have to go to the Planning Commission for our district boundary amendment and then come back to the County Council. So unfortunately, we won't be fully entitled until after the first of the year, and then that's when we'll start taking applications and working towards the lottery.
So this is so exciting, and I love hearing about the diversity of the homes that you're going to have available. And I love that we've got condominiums, duplexes, townhomes, tiny homes, and live/workspace, which is really cool. And something that, I know a lot of the people who had those units in Kihei absolutely love them. So how did you come up with the diversity of this project? And what were you hearing a lot of those needs in that workforce housing market?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it is an interesting thing. Is that's one of the parts that I guess I'll give credit where credit is due. The original design and concept came from my boss, the president of Alaula Builders, Doyle Betzel. If you remember the Betzel brothers back in the early 2000s, they were the most prolific builder here on Maui. Doyle took a 10-year vacation and came back and started up Alaula Builders. And so we've been moving towards that. But, you said, like, for myself, we're over 10 years, 12 years, whatever it is, I've been focused on, workforce housing. Doyle's been doing this a very long time. There's some other folks on the team. But, we really have studied, like, different areas of the country and quite honestly, the world and what's going on. How can we make housing more affordable for local residents? What is the newest and latest and greatest in planning and land use? And quite honestly, urban sprawl is, just something that we can't keep doing here on Maui. We can't just keep sprawling and sprawling and sprawling. And so one of the many ways with which, it's a multivariate approach, but one of the many ways with which a lot of communities are trying to tackle, housing for local folks is through mixed use and increasing a little bit of density. And so when Doyle first put pen to paper and we were looking at it, we said, hey, rather than just we're not going to just go straight single-family residence, and we don't want to just do a big, huge, apartment complex or condominium complex. What do we want to do? And so that's where it was really kind of fun to say, okay, how else can we do this and try to do something that Maui hasn't seen before, and yet not lose the character of Maui. We don't want to become Oahu. Everybody agrees with that. We don't want to become San Diego or any of those other places, whatever it is. We need to stay Maui. So how can we kind of mix those things? And so I do have to, for the original design part of it, and the overarching conceptual, I'll give Doyle the credit on that one.
Well, that's so awesome to know that he created such a wonderful design. And, again, looking at how do we maximize the density? Let me ask a couple of questions, because people are always, density is coming up a lot. And we recognize, compared to other places, a lot of our lots are pretty considerably sized. And that's an area where we're finding, okay, well, that can be great, but it can also be a challenge in a lot of regions. What, in terms of your home sites, give me a sense of the range of the land area for, like the townhomes or the duplexes. How many, and how many units do you have if you combine all of these? How many total units, housing units, will be created on it's just under 15 acres, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's 202 homes total.
Okay.
A little over half of them will be the multifamily.
Okay.
And then a smattering, I think there's about 18 of the live work. There's 20-something tiny homes, 6 single families, I want to say about 14 townhomes, and about the same number of duplexes. And so it will, over the whole 14.97 acres will be condominiumized. So it won't be like, carving out, you've got, 10,000 square foot lot or something like that, especially with this mix of home sites. Where possible, because some of these, is you have a 2-story, it's not going to be possible, but where possible, everybody's going to have a yard, right? So you'll have a little fenced-in yard where, you might be able to have a garden or a dog or plant a tree, I don't know, put a trampoline in the backyard for the kids, whatever it might be. So, obviously, if you're on the second floor, we're not going to be able to do that. But what we'll do is create balconies. Obviously, here on Maui and Hawaii, outdoor living is a big deal. So we'll do that. There's some fantastic views up there. Looking out towards the North Shore, across the Haleakala, all the way to South Kihei as well. But the part that I think that sometimes gets missed is there's a fantastic view, Mauka, as well, looking up into the West Maui Mountains.
Yeah.
But you touched on density. That's something that's it's an interesting, delicate mix to try to walk.
Yeah.
It scares the neighbors, right? If you live in a single-family neighborhood and everybody's got their 10,000 square foot, rectangle, and we have that, to suddenly have more density is scary to the neighbors, right? It's always going to be, what's going to happen with traffic, what's going to happen with schools, what's going to happen with views. The neighbors are going to be concerned about those things. So it's a delicate balance. We don't want to, again, become kaka'ako, where we're going up 40 stories. But if we really want to try to, get attainable housing for folks and really want to build workforce housing and not just have, Wailuku connect to Waikapu, which connects to Ma'alaya, which then connects to Kihei, and we end up with just, some big urban blob by just doing suburban sprawl, we're going to have to look at things a little bit differently. So that's the part of going could we have, maxed out even more than 202 units there? Of course we could have, but we feel like the diversity of home types and the mix, it was sort of a good balance as far as the amount of density that we ultimately are plopping, or trying to create there.
Now, tiny homes is a huge topic, and many people are looking at diversity of tiny home options and new things that we can do, trying to just get roofs over people's heads. Tell us a little bit about your tiny homes and how tiny is tiny, or how big is tiny?
You know what? I didn't think it would be this, but I want to say that's the one that most people are excited about. Like, I get the most conversations and people are most excited about the tiny homes. They're 375 square feet, and we're essentially trying to model them after, there's a company called Boxable, which Elon Musk actually has a Boxable home, an extremely well-designed space, very ergonomic. I mean, there's not a square foot that's wasted. One of the differences for us, though, is we're going to end up putting a lanai on them as well. So, you can have a little bit of outdoor living space. So even that 375 will feel a little bit larger than what it is. Typically we don't do 8-foot ceilings as well. So, you're going to feel a little bit, like it's a little bit larger. I don't think we're going to do enough to have a loft like some tiny homes do.
Yeah.
But that is one. And, the other piece of the tiny home that is important to me, I'll just say specifically, is to give families an opportunity to get in the game. And what I mean by that is to just own a home.
Yeah.
Get into home ownership. as the market rises or falls or whatever it is, you can ride that. But if you think about folks, like if you would have just bought a home 5 years ago, where would you be now?
Right.
Even if it was just, an EL Parkside or a Kihei Villages or, whatever it might be, the thing is to get in the game. And that's one of the reasons why we're focusing on for sale homes rather than the for rent. Dr. Ben Carson, who is a brilliant, brilliant man, when he was director of HUD, I heard him speak in D.C., and he said something that really impacted me. And he said, home ownership is the way that working class families can become middle class, and it's the way that middle class families can accumulate wealth.
Right.
Just my own personal story, my own family, coming from, immigrants from Italy. My dad did the GI Bill, bought a duplex, traded up to one house, traded up to another house, and they were able to, my parents were really able to take advantage of that. So it's like something I personally have seen in my own life. And I want to be able to help other families afford that, whether it be, you have to take out a loan against your house to put your kids through school or whatever it might be. It's just, I find that home ownership is a really important thing. And so circling back to your question about the tiny homes is it may not be your forever home, but it can help you get in the game.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's important.
I agree with, of course, Dr. Ben Carson's assessment, but, I have a story, too. I was a young single mom and bought a condo at Harbor Lights on an agreement of sale. And
good for you.
Later was able to I then got married and was able to use the rental income towards helping to build a house in Kihei, and then after selling that house, then was able to buy a home up country. And so, it's all about, having opportunities for moving up at different points in your life. And, and before I bought the condo on an agreement of sale at Harbor Lights, I rented. And at the time, it was more expensive for me to rent than to buy the condo.
Right, so you're a 20-year overnight success.
Yeah, right. I wish it was only 20 years.
But I think that's part of the education that we need to also provide for, our local families and our, say our kids that are going through school and things like that is this notion that I'm going to just start in my forever home is great. And it did happen for some people. And there was an era in the 70s and early 80s where that was, we were able to do that. And there's families in, all the increments in Kahului, you'd go to Skill Village and some, you go up to Napili. And there was opportunities at that point in time where, you did buy your forever home and your family still lives in that. Unfortunately, the world has evolved in a way with which that's much more difficult now. So even in the tiny homes, that you tell your story about the Harbor Lights, that is actually in my mind, I think of who's going to live there is that single mom, single dad. It might be the retiree. We're going to do the best we can to accommodate all of the units to be aging in place. So maybe it's, you also get a trade down. There was one gentleman who I won't say his name, but he lives in Wailuku Heights. And when we were doing our presentations, and reaching out to the neighbors, he's like, "Oh gosh, maybe I sell my house in Wailuku Heights. I moved down into one of these tiny homes." So it's like it could be the other way. So suddenly one of the families that's trying to trade up, trades up into the house that the person's trading down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
that
single family, those single moms, single dads, I think the tiny homes is the one that really I think about.
So within that 375 square feet, are you going to have? Is it one bedroom or two bedroom?
It's essentially it's a one bedroom.
Okay.
There's not room for two bedrooms and 375 square feet. So yeah, it's one bedroom. And like I said, we're going to kind of go off of what that boxable design was. They've done a great thing. So, the other home type, Pam, just to preempt your question, is the live works.
Right.
We've had a lot of questions about that as well. First off is the work part, quote unquote. The only things that will be allowed in those, spaces are current businesses that are allowed by Maui County Code in neighborhoods. So you're not going to have a machine shop or,
right.
Something like that, right?
That's
it's
really important to cover so the neighbors are clear. Yeah.
Right. So the intent is to have services there to keep people in the neighborhood.
Right.
Is to say maybe it's daycare, maybe it's a hair salon, things like that. That you would stay within the neighborhood to do. So that's. But the other piece of it that's interesting is the design was sort of the thought behind it was the Ohana method. Where
right.
there's a lot of folks that can't afford to buy a home. Oh, but if it has an Ohana and I can rent out the Ohana, now I can afford this home. So we said, maybe that's the way with which, we can also help folks be able to, quote unquote, get in is by having that additional income as well, whether it be a business or a long-term, tenant that you put in there. So that's the other piece of the live work that I think is we hope that, helps boost people to be able to, move forward in life.
It is one of those amazing things, and it's one of those things that I think years ago, I'm trying to think when it was, maybe it was the late 80s, I think everybody was talking about the cash flow game, right? Mm-hmm. And learning all about cash flow and how, having that positive income coming in each month is a help. And I think it's really important that we start teaching our children about that, also about savings. But I love this opportunity. And again, I know many people who have those live-work units in Kihei that really appreciate, the gal who cuts my hair, she and her husband live upstairs, and then she has her beauty salon down below. And they take great pride in that. And also, they take great pride in their house up above, and just it's also giving them a comfortable space. So they're, unlike me who works out of my house, and sometimes my office overruns into my other personal space, they've got that great division. And they've got that great, in my day, and I'm already home, which is really nice. Don't have to commute.
Right. I've worked from home different times. I guess the part that was hard for me was A, that the fridge was too close. But B was the fact that, that it sometimes was hard, that, work is just always right there. So are you ever not working, or are you ever, so with the live work where the unit is downstairs, it is separated, it can help create that balance that we need.
Yeah.
That sometimes we just need to leave work, and be at home, be with our families. So, it's going to be fun to see as it unfolds, and to see families move in and the neighborhood grow.
And they're great little services like that. Isn't there another location in Wailuku that has something like that in the industrial area as well?
Yeah, the one in Kihei, ironically enough, a Betzel project.
Okay.
Hugely successful. The ones in Wailuku, over there in the industrial area, is not as successful as, just to be perfectly honest, not as successful as the ones, say, in Kihei. I think part of it is because it's an industrial area that has a component of a neighborhood rather than the other way around. A neighborhood that has a component of, say, the business. And so, I'm not saying that it's not successful, but it's just got a little bit of that. I think that nuance is important to see, that it's like, okay, anyways, that's, but yeah, there's multiple or a couple different places on island that have that sort of nuance.
Now, how big is when you're talking about these live work spaces, what are we looking at for the living area, and what are we looking at for the working space below?
If off the top of my head, I believe that the townhome is going to be around 1,400 or 1,500 square feet, and the studio downstairs is 400 or 450, I believe is what it is. So it's going to be, total 1,800 or 1,900 square feet, if I'm remembering off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, that's sizable. That's great.
Yeah. The house I live in now is not 1,400 square feet.
No, right. I mean, it's a thing right now where we're sitting and looking at all the space that we've got or don't have, and looking for options. And I think this presents so many options. I'm just really thrilled to hear about this development because I love the different choices that people are going to have, and a lot of our younger folks. I mean, my daughter included is just really enamored with tiny homes, and they're which is great. She doesn't need a lot of things. She's sort of a minimalist and loves really just going and being outdoors and hanging out with her friends and doesn't spend a lot of time at home and doesn't need a lot of room to collect things like a lot of us did in past generations, had all sorts of different collections that we were really proud of, and those things just kind of sit on the shelf. So she's sitting there going, nope, don't need that much space, just need a place to come and cook and relax. And I think those are going to be great options. And then the diversity that you have for people with children, with 2 and 3 bedrooms, as well as the live-work spaces. It's a great project. And how long have you been working on this? Because a lot of people don't realize, we hear a lot about we want affordable housing and rentals. And, of course, we know that this is all housing, workforce housing that people can own, which is really exciting so they can move up. But many don't realize all that the developer and all of those involved, from the architects to the engineers and everybody who's involved in the project, all the carrying costs that go along the way until you go from concept to actually building, and then from building to actually selling. So how long has this been in the works?
Oh boy, that's a great question. Concept to completion is probably going to be 4 or 5 years. But just as a brief timeline, the group started looking at this property 2 years ago.
Okay.
And obviously, before you pull the trigger, you got to do, before you even buy the property, you've got to do a certain element of due diligence. You've got to spend a certain element of money, just in consultants and analyzing and designing and saying, okay, what could go there? What could you possibly do? You don't just buy a piece of land and then start. So you look at just that alone. You've got to spend money before you even buy the property. Then when you buy the property, then you start hitting it hard and running fast and trying to get things done because time is money. Just as a brief, just to do some quick math, $5 million property carried at 5% is, roughly $25,000 a month.
Yeah.
A month in carrying costs. So, when you look at, or I guess it was, say $6 million. $6 million at 5% is $25,000 a month. So you go, okay, just that alone is, you go, okay, how can we expedite things and move things along? But, we had to do an environmental assessment, which is important. And, you have to do your archaeological surveys. You have to do your cultural impact assessments. You have to do hydrological. You have to find out where your water's coming from, where you have storage. You've got to do drainage. And that's not even, talking about the design of the project itself, and streets and curbs, gutters, sidewalks, buildings. So there's a lot that goes into it. So you look at, when we get to the county council in the 2.97 process, which is what we used.
Which is a fast-track process, by the way.
It's a fast-track process, but we call it fast-track because the county council has 60 days with which to act. No, it took us 2 years to get to that 60 days.
Wow.
So that's the quote-unquote, they're here at the end. It's now, okay, it's fast-track. And so, even after that, then, it's going to take us 6-9 months to get permits, and then you start, moving earth. And then you got to go vertical and everything like that, which takes, a year and a half, or maybe more, with a project, of this size. So, like I said, it's concept to completion. We're talking about 4 or 5 years, and so that's the matrix with which we have to weave to get homes for people to move into. So it's not like, okay, boom, we can snap our fingers and create 5,000 homes overnight, which is what Maui needs.
Right. Yeah, it's going to take time. But this is a big jump. I mean, 202 units is a nice jump. But when we're talking, I don't know, maybe you're better off at the current number than I am. I mean, it was several years ago that we were over 14,000 short. So I haven't seen an updated study.
I back off of that. It was in 2014. UHERO did a report that said that we needed 14,000 homes within the next 10 years. So basically, from 2015 to 2025, we were supposed to build 14,000 homes. It's now 2022, and we built a couple thousand total, including rentals. If you use the full spectrum. But even I always say, listen, even if you cut that in half, and you say, okay, with population doing whatever it's going to do, or things like that, even if we said, hey, listen, we got to build 5,000 homes, which is what the Maui County Comprehensive Affordable Housing Plan said, which was done 2 years, or a little over a year ago. It was presented, and so I was like, even if we say 5,000, if you live in Wailuku or Kehalani, our 202 homes sounds like a lot if you live next door. But overarching, you're going, okay, that's just a small smidgen of 5,000 homes that's needed, to house our folks. So, it's as the Buddhists say, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So we're just trying to chop wood and carry water.
I love that. I'm writing that down because I think that's so great. And before and after, I think the key thing is that we just really need to get on with it and get some relief. I mean, the fact that we're looking at having people sleep in their cars overnight in a parking lot, and a lot of the people who are sleeping in their cars overnight in a parking lot that we've now approved, which is great. It's a tool, it's a Band-Aid, but if we can do that, we can get housing over people's heads. So we really need to get on with comprehensive solutions, and I think this is a great comprehensive solution. And I know that the council has hailed you for this project and the diversity in this project. You meaning Alalo Builders, and you for the advocacy work that you've been doing. It really is one of those projects that I hope is a model that we can look at. And there's going to be many different models coming forward. But the good news is that we are seeing new models moving forward and new options. And we've been spending a lot of time just looking at, in essence, tiny homes, as even things as looking at how can we just work with sheds that are 200 square feet to just get people housed so that they can know that they're safe and protected and not outside in the elements. So there's so much that we need to do and can do, and it's great to see projects like this move forward. But as you point out, fast-tracked it takes a while to get there. Now you're fast-tracked, but still you've got to go through the process of meetings. So if you get all the approvals in January, what are we thinking? What's the given what's also happening in construction with prices rising and supply chain issues? How is that impacting the project, if at all? And you said the county determines the pricing. So how does that work?
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, you covered a lot there, all the way from trying to house people and to land back to the pricing and everything like that. That's I think one of the scarier pieces of being a workforce housing developer is that there's no upside. Meaning, if the market takes a run like it has in the last 7, 8, 9 years, you don't really participate in the upside of the market pricing because of the fixed prices by the county. However, we have to experience supply chain issues, which is what we're doing with, Holly Kiola. We ordered all of our materials, like a year in advance, and we just saw this upcoming. Of course, right now, inflation is looming. Interest rates, which also affects people's ability to purchase, is right there. And so it's one of the reasons, Pam, why there's only like 5 developers left on Maui. When you talk about, as far as trying to, it's like, it's a risky proposition. And, I want to give a shout out to John Varel, who is the owner of this property. He doesn't need to do this. He's a gentleman that's been wildly successful, take a couple of companies public. He owns a MacNut farm and a regenerative farm out in Waihe'e. All of his products stay on island. He's trying to do food sustainability for Maui. And then he said, hey, listen, workforce housing is something that we need. Let's go ahead and do this. It's a very risky proposition for workforce housing developers to do this. But he's really willing to do that. I mean, he's lived here for decades, and Maui's his home, and he really wants to do what he can to, help the families of Maui. And so, as far as the pricing and, supply chain and inflation and all those other things, that is something that's looming. I don't have my crystal ball. I wish I did, to be able to see what's going to happen. But, we're still 100% dedicated to this and absolutely want to see it all the way through to completion. And hopefully at the end it made sense too.
Yeah. Well, I know at the end it's going to make sense, which is because it's so desperately needed. And, we had Paul Brubaker on a while ago, and he really talked about, how unfortunate it is that we, as a community, really kind of blew it when it comes to, for example, interest rates, that we had historic lows in interest rates. And had we moved forward quicker, we could have got people in housing, with a lot less monthly expense. And now as our interest rates are rising, that's really changing the dynamics and going to cost all those people coming into housing now more. So we kind of really missed the boat on the opportunity. But, at least housing is coming online. At least we're getting units built. And so, and I think the key thing is, I know there's a lot of groups helping people prepare and think through that. So,
that's actually something that's really exciting. There are some financial opportunity centers and things like that. Hale Mahaolu, I know Nahaleo Maui, Habitat, Hale Mahaolu. There's some folks really trying to educate people on financial literacy and home ownership. And so people are, they may not be ready today, but, they're teaching, delayed gratification, or saying, hey, listen, if I can, set aside, a little bit here and there a couple of years from now, I will be able to buy a home. I may not be able to today, but even, say like, okay, the county teeing up and saying, hey, listen, are we going to be ready when interest rates come back down? But can families do the same thing?
Right.
I think that's actually something that to me is exciting. I would love to see classes go to Baldwin High School and start teaching stuff,
Let's start teaching the kids earlier on. Get those
right. And I think that's happening more and more, and so that's something that's really exciting. And so, it's in today's Instagram world, we want things now, but I think that it's important to also see that, okay, I can tee myself up to be successful when the opportunity does come.
That's right. Well, we want everybody to prepare, and the other thing that we often find is that they get some of the education and they prepare and they get on the list and they're ready to go. But along the way, sometimes life changes, or they bought a new car, or they lost their job, or they decided to be an entrepreneur. And, some of the things can maybe be challenges, and some of them can be opportunities. But you want to work with a group and financial advisors to make sure that you're understanding the impact of different decisions that you make, so that when you're on the list and the housing becomes available, you're ready. You're ready at that moment. because often we hear so many people were ready when they signed up, but when it came time to execute, they really wanted the house, but something else had changed. So we want to encourage everybody to get that literacy. Lauren, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's always a treasure to talk to you, and so excited about this project.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, and thank you to the Chamber and Mokulele Airlines for their sponsorship. And I appreciate the time to come on and talk to you guys about Kuikahi Village. And if people want more information, they can go to alaula.org. That's ALAULA.org, and see more about the neighborhood and sign up to get updates.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. You have a great Maui day.
Thank you, Pam. Aloha.
Thank you. Aloha. All right, we're going to have a brief message from our sponsor, Mokulele Airlines, and we'll be right back.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
All right. We're back, and we are excited to have Greg Gaudet, who is with Maui Home Builders. He is the son of a real estate developer. Investing in real estate is in Greg's blood. But his world was shattered after his dad died from pancreatic cancer when he was 14 years old, and he really struggled to cope. And like a lot of teenagers who lose a parent, you know, there's a lot of pain in that, and people cope in different ways. And he had some challenges and went through periods of time where he was even homeless and was, had really difficult feelings and struggled to find his way and what he wanted to do in the world, and really fought to recover from the challenges he faced, support his mom. And what helped him really do that was a career in real estate. He dabbled in appraisals and escrow and property management and home restorations, which is something that he enjoys doing. Although he was earning below median income and was barely making ends meet, he had discipline and a desire to improve his life and, get out of the rat race, which drove him to save between 30 to 50% of his income at different times along the way. And in all of those roles that he had in, real estate-related ventures, it prepared him for the time when he was able to realize his dream now of being an investor, and says, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So I just want to say aloha and good morning to Greg Gaudet. How are you, Greg?
Hi, Pam. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, it's my great pleasure. Thank you for joining us. You have had such a journey, and tell us a little bit about how that journey took you to getting involved in and operating Maui Home Buyers.
Yeah, so, you touched on a lot of it already. Basically, I think just a quick recap, like you said, my dad passed when I was a young teenager, and that kind of set me off, set my life off course, so to say. But basically, I struggled with addiction for a long time. Like you also covered, I did work in real estate on and off through that period as I recovered. And I always wanted to, I was always an employee, sort of say, but I always wanted to do something for myself. And I was always interested in the investing side. So thanks to having built my recovery over time, and again, you touched on just working hard and saving really aggressively. I was able to save up enough money to start off buying a Harbor Lights condo.
Oh, we were talking about that earlier. Me
too. It worked out great, actually. I think at the time, the funny part is a lot of people warned me to stay away from that place. But I actually couldn't help it because I'd see the numbers and I just thought the numbers made sense, So I took a chance and bought one, and it worked out well and made a little bit of cash flow from it, and then just saved until I could afford to buy another one. And it was a slow process, but with that process, each month I'd earn a little bit more because I'd have some extra income, so I could save a little bit more. And I learned a whole lot. And so I actually really appreciated taking those small steps in a place like Harbor Lights, because it allowed me to get my feet wet without risking, really putting myself into bankruptcy and losing everything and getting underwater big time. So, it was that was a great opportunity for me. I learned a lot. And as I grew, I networked and met new people and found partners and was able to grow from there.
That's so amazing. So tell us about, now that you've grown, what are the kind of properties that you're working on now?
I wouldn't say we have a type of property. We try to be open-minded to working on whatever property needs our attention. Our goal, I would say, is we try really hard to kind of follow this path of, we don't always get to pick and choose which houses we're going to, work with, but we try to find those kind of high-end resort beach kind of properties to do fix and flips with. And we try to do that so that we can create capital without really hurting our, local homeowner kind of community, right? Because we see those as being kind of the properties that are most often bought by wealthy mainland investors. And so we use that as a chance to bring more money into Maui, hopefully, and use that capital to invest back into the working class rentals. And hopefully our goal is to create more rentals and to keep our rentals priced, fairly. We always try to be on the lower end. We always want to be below market value, ideally. Or generally, we shoot for about 10 to 15% below market rents, and just change the perception of landlords. Our goal, my personal goal, is to change that perception that landlords are bad guys. And, a couple of little ways we try to do that is we always allow dogs. We encourage the tenants to have pets and animals. Always just make sure that we're available. And when the tenants, I'm there for them no matter what they need. In fact, a lot of times it's, I don't know if it's even maybe a little bit too far, but I have tenants that will call me with their personal stuff. And, I have a tenant that has brain cancer, and she's got a teenage daughter. She doesn't really have a lot of people to talk to. And she'll call me and we'll sit in my dad died of cancer, so I can relate a lot. And I give her a lot of, I kind of encourage her. I say, tell her things like you really should make some videos for your daughter so that, if things don't work out, she can at least have a piece of you with her. And anyways, I'll sit on the phone with her for hours and cry and talk and try and help, and have a lot of tenants with kind of things they're dealing with like that I do my best to kind of be there as a friend, not just an evil landlord, so to say. That was a long-winded explanation, but hopefully that covered everything.
Well, but it shows how you really connect with your tenants, and again, it's you don't just view the financial relationship. You're looking at this so holistically, looking at how you can provide housing to people. I know we've talked briefly about how do we get more HUD HUD vouchers for folks, and how do people who have HUD vouchers find these more affordable units? Because everybody's really struggling with getting, using their HUD vouchers and finding things within the price range. So it's great that you've got, you're looking at ways to keep the rents lower, and you're excited to have HUD tenants.
Yeah, I love having HUD tenants, especially so we have a handful of units at Harbor Lights now, and that's like the ideal place for HUD. I don't think we have one other HUD. I think that's not in Harbor, down in Kihei, but generally, if we try to only find HUD tenants for Harbor Lights, because we know how many of them really need housing, and nobody will take the HUD. But yeah, if we really would be great if we could come up with a solution to make HUD a more feasible option for more landlords, and give the tenants options outside of Harbor Lights to live. But and I do encourage tenants all the time to reach out to the other resources. I don't know what they have in other places, but I feel like Maui has some great resources as far as, MEO, Family Life Center, Catholic Charities of Hawaii. Those are the three we work with all the time, and they've been amazing for some of our tenants. And you don't have to be, on Section 8 or the stereotype what maybe some tenants might think in order to qualify for those benefits. We have one of our tenants out in Lahaina that makes pretty good money, but had some things happen, and I urged her to go to them, and they really helped her out. So yeah, we really appreciate those programs, and hopefully we can get more of those kinds of that kind of assistance for our community.
I sure hope so, because again, that's so needed. And I love the Harbor Lights. It's interesting today. We've had a couple of conversations about Harbor Lights, but I think that was if I recall correctly, the brainchild of former Mayor Elmer Carvalho. So you have those 4 buildings with all those units, and I wish I could say how many total units there are. I used to live there, but I don't remember. But
352.
352 units with a pool and great playground area for children. And, when I lived there, it was a little bit of a scary place. There were things happening there when I first bought in. But, over the years, things were cleaned up, and the association really held to the rules. And there were some times where we had some pretty hefty assessments because people were adding, because of our housing shortage. They had more people than the units were meant to house.